School principal allows Muslim refugee to rape 16 girls for disturbing reason. This is what you get when the so-called religion of peace comes to your country. This time it's Sweden. Sweden was once a prime example of open-mindedness and liberalism. But today they are a symbol of another thing. A symbol of how a culture can be so naive and stupid that it has committed suicide. They have let in every Muslim refugee they can find because they don't want to be bigots or racists. As a result of this, women and children are being sexually assaulted and raped at an unprecedented rate while scumbag liberal officials look the other way and go as far as telling these poor women and girls that if they have to get raped it's best to get raped by a refugee. Huh? What kind of asinine reasoning is that? In the latest example of how the religion of peace is peaceful, 16 girls at a local school have reported being sexually harassed and abused by Muslim refugees who attend the same school. But when these girls told the administration, they were outrageously labeled as racists. Adult Muslim refugee men often lie about their ages by telling officials that they're young teenagers instead of the truth that they are indeed men as old as in their 40s. Just so they can go to school with young girls who are easy prey. But meanwhile, in the United States, liberals try to convince us that the real predators are white college-aged men. Front Page Mag reports. As a result of this, women and children are being sexually assaulted and raped at an unprecedented rate while scumbag liberal officials look the other way and go as far as telling these poor women and girls that if they have to get raped it's best to get raped by a refugee. Huh? What kind of asinine reasoning is that? In the latest example of how the religion of peace is peaceful, 16 girls at a local school have reported being sexually harassed and abused by Muslim refugees who attend the same school. But when these girls told the administration, they were outrageously labeled as racists. Adult Muslim refugee men often lie about their ages by telling officials that they're young teenagers instead of the truth that they are indeed men as old as in their 40s. Just so they can go to school with young girls who are easy prey. But meanwhile, in the United States, liberals try to convince us that the real predators are white college-aged men. Front Page Mag reports. Muslim rape misunderstandings come to Europe. After Muslim terrorist attacks, we're told that the killers just misunderstood their religion. They misunderstood the peaceful nature of Quranic verses such as "kill them wherever you find them, they should be murdered or crucified, or their hands and their feet should be cut off on opposite sides and strike off their heads and strike off every fingertip of them." But the misunderstandings of Islam are just getting started. Not only are Americans and Europeans being murdered by Muslim terrorists due to these unfortunate misunderstandings, but European girls are being raped because of more misunderstandings. The principal of Wilhelm Dias Gymnasium was concerned about his female students. So he sent a letter warning their parents that the Muslim refugees who had been put up next to the school gym are marked by their own culture. And now Germans were being marked by their culture. Girls were told to wear modest clothing to avoid misunderstandings. But rape isn't a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is the politically correct leftist idea that the rapist should be excused on account of his culture and religion. The Quran states, "O Prophet, tell your wives and your daughters and the women of the believers to draw their cloaks all over their bodies that they may thus be distinguished and not molested." The obvious implication is that women who aren't dressed in a burqa may be molested. Or as the commentary states, it is more likely that this way they may be recognized as pious, free women, and may not be hurt, considered by mistake as roving slave girls. The Muslim migrants who have invaded Germany just might misunderstand and mistake the teen girls going to the gym as roving slave girls. And under Islamic law, that's what they are. Islamic law permits Muslim men to rape even married infidel women in the Dar al-Harb. Let alone unaccompanied girls. Unfortunately, the misunderstandings are well underway in Germany. A letter about an asylum camp in Germany warns of a culture of rape and violence with numerous rapes, sexual assaults and forced prostitution. Even though the women in the camp are likely to be mostly fellow Muslims, who are well acquainted with the means of avoiding misunderstandings with a Muslim man, wear a hijab, wear a burqa, never make eye contact, never smile, the misunderstandings still keep taking place. On a large scale. because there was never any misunderstanding. As the letter points out, these men regard women as their inferiors and treat unaccompanied women as fair game. The misunderstanding here isn't on the part of the Muslim men who view women as fair game. When a mugger snatches a purse or a burglar breaks into a home, he isn't the victim of a misunderstanding. He just happens to have a different ethical code than the society he is victimizing. But these rapists are members of a society where rape is a crime for a woman, not for a man. The only misunderstanding here is on the part of the Westerners who allowed them in to commit their cultural crimes. Muslim sexual offenders have used misunderstandings due to cultural differences as their defense. Ismatullah Sharifi, an Afghan refugee, repeatedly raped Australian women and claimed that he was confused about consent due to cultural differences. Ahmed Ahmad Atagor, a Libyan Muslim, sexually assaulted girls as young as 13. The judge told him, he was very ill prepared to deal with cultural differences. But it was really his victims who were ill prepared to deal with his cultural differences. The Pakistani rapists who went after 18 women and girls claim that they could rape a girl because she was not related to us and she was not wearing any headscarf. Their Grand Mufti agreed, saying, it's 90% the women's responsibility. If you take uncovered meat and put it on the street, on the pavement, in a garden, in a park or in the backyard, without a cover and the cats eat it, is it the fault of the cat or the uncovered meat? The Grand Mufti asked. The uncovered meat is the problem. But if you get rid of the feral cats that show up in civilized countries, scratching at the door to be let in, the problem goes away. If the Grand Mufti and his favorite rapists were picked up by animal control, put in the pound, neutered and then released back into the wild that they came from, that would be it. Germany has decided to take in huge numbers of Muslim men who come from a religion and culture where a woman who isn't wearing a hijab and isn't escorted by a man can be raped. And that leads to misunderstandings between the invaders and the native population. In the UK, these misunderstandings have already led to over 2,000 children being victimized by the Muslim misunderstanders of such finer points of British law as the definition of pedophilia. As gay testones so are in current documents, the tide of misunderstandings has reached Germany. A 16-year-old girl was raped on September 11 by an unidentified dark-skinned man speaking broken German near a refugee shelter. Parents were told not to let their children out unaccompanied. This is just one of a long list of Muslim misunderstandings that have already taken place in Germany. Over the summer, some of the misunderstandings included 5 Turks trying to rape a girl, a 14-year-old boy being raped in a train bathroom and a 7-year-old girl being raped in a park. That last misunderstanding happened in the park of the victims of fascism where the misunderstander lured the little girl away from her mother at the playground and into the bushes. It was a cultural difference. Her age was the same as that of Aisha, Muhammad's wife. In the park of the victims of fascism, the little girl became the victim of the latest incarnation of fascism, Islamofascism. Islamofascism is represented equally by Merkel and the Muslim migrants. While Merkel enforces the Islamic colonization of Europe, the Muslim migrants carry it out. And perhaps one day there will be a park dedicated to the victims of this mass invasion. And perhaps that little girl's name will be there. If we don't do something about all these misunderstandings whose nature we keep misunderstanding. The refugees are mostly migrants. They are not coming to be part of any country, but to exploit it and then conquer it and rule it. They are not bound by any moral or ethical code that we understand. Their advocates talk about human rights, but in Muslim culture there is no such thing as human rights. Their cultures are tribal. There are no universal rights, only responsibilities to members of kin groups. When those kin groups remain intact, then members will prey exclusively on outsiders. When they fall apart, as they do during immigration and migration, then mass rapes and murders take place. Europeans believe in human rights. Muslims do not. Europeans believe women are equal. Muslims do not. This is the underlying misunderstanding and this is what must be understood. Either Europe will end Muslim migration or surrender to the cultural difference of an Islamic society in which women are not allowed to walk the streets because they are property. It's time to clear up these misunderstandings. Europe can either have free women, bars, churches, synagogues, cartoons, free speech, pork sausage and beer. Or it can have millions of Muslim migrants and their wide-eyed toddlers. It can't have both. Not for long. Because there will be misunderstandings. Bombs will go off, women will be raped and cartoonists murdered. And we will be told to change our behavior to avoid more of these misunderstandings. After each misunderstanding, we will lose more of our civil rights and the invaders will have more power to dictate our behavior and our way of life. Until finally the only way to end all these misunderstandings will be a submission to the Islamic State. We may finally understand then, but it will be too late. Muslim migrants don't misunderstand our laws or values. They don't care about them. We misunderstand theirs. And so we do our best to accommodate their contempt for our values. It's time that we understood this cycle of submission and showed the invaders that they misunderstood our generosity as appeasement, our friendliness as weakness and our tolerance as surrender. And then we can finally bring all these misunderstandings to an end. How much longer will society allow this? How much more will it take to make the civilized world wake up as to the reality of the so-called religion of peace? When will we start fighting back and calling a duck instead of sugarcoating what these Muslims really are? The refugee invasion is indeed a Trojan horse. Let's just hope people wake up before it's too late. Please share if you agree Muslim refugees should be banned.